The sister, her background is Hinduism, yeah?
Hinduism.
From a Hinduism
There's much to learn. I mean, people
perspective,
people
yeah.
need to learn
I'm trying to pick the perfect
a lot. You know, there's a lot of misunderstanding.
I'll let you know whether you're keep going on.
So would you still consider yourself to be a Hindu?
No,
You don't?
no.
Okay, is there a reason you left that particular belief?
No, I just don't overall believe in the concept of religions in the sense that I don't want to be told by books or something like that to how to live my life.
Okay, fair enough. But we live in a society. So someone is ultimately going to tell you how to lead your life. For example, if you wanted to have a driving license, yes,
I
in
mean,
this
of
country
course.
or any country, you will be specifically told the do's and the don'ts. You'll be specifically told the do's and the don'ts, yeah? So someone is always going to tell you, because we are living in a society. We
Yes.
don't live in some cave where we have our own rule or our own, say in everything.
Yes. No, what I mean is do and don't do in my personal life. I don't mean in harming others or anything like that. I would rather believe my emotional guidance system or my instinct rather than a book.
Okay. But let me ask you this. Have you ever been wrong in your personal subjective
Yes, of
guidance
course.
guiding
Yeah.
system?
And I learn. I
Yeah,
do
but-
make mistakes, right?
Yeah,
That's
but this is called trial and error.
yeah.
So what you're doing is you're constantly learning through your experience,
Yes.
and that is not the optimum way to lead your life, is it? Because the reason for that is, what if you make a decision and that is going to be something jeopardizing either your life or somebody else's life? Yeah? What are you
I
going to
mean,
do then? Because if you're going to base everything on trial and error, that is a possibility, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you have enough people to support you, get you through that, it's not that bad, right?
Enough people to support you.
Yeah.
But what if those people all have their own understanding of what is good and what is bad?
Yeah,
Which-
no, I
which
mean,
might not be in
there
sync with
for
yours.
you while you get through that, correct that error.
Okay,
If you have people supporting, if you have people loving you,
right.
isn't that good enough?
Well, I'm not sure about that because, like I said, people can give you lots of opinions and their opinions can be wrong. Just
Yeah,
like
no,
your
not
opinion might be
opinions,
wrong,
just
my
being
opinion might be
there.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see, what I'm saying is that if there is an objective truth, then we need to all be agreeing with that. So how do we find if something is objectively right or not? Where we all can agree that yes, this is something that we axiomatically believe to be morally right or morally wrong. Who decides that ultimately? If everyone has their own subjective understandings, then you can never come to an objective reasoning, can you? You can add.
I mean, there are constitutions, right? If you want to go
Say again?
that objectively, if you want to see objectively,
Yeah.
then there are constitutions and laws and stuff. So
Yeah,
that
but
is
even the
pretty
constitutions are amended,
objective. Yeah.
They get amended many
And they are
times.
supposed to be, and because world changes, values change.
Okay, let me give you an example of constitution. In the United States, according to the constitution, they have the right to carry guns.
Yeah.
If you were an American,
Yeah.
would you abide by the constitution or would you be against it?
Against it.
Why? You just
I don't
mentioned
feel-
constitutions are there.
Yeah.
And so according to you, I mean, the question I asked you was about objective truth. But now you straight away said, no, I'll be against this constitution
Yeah.
because it doesn't agree with your morals. And I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah.
According to the morals, everybody shouldn't have the right to carry guns.
Yeah.
Because there are many irresponsible people, and we know from the history of America. In fact, every year, the amount of people that die from gun violence over there is probably more than some wars that have been fought in history. Yeah? And this is clearly wrong.
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. So what is the objective truth that you would come to
I
in
mean,
a society?
what would
In
be
a
such
society.
complicated questions?
Say again?
I mean, do you have examples of any complicated questions?
Complicated.
Because it's not that hard to see objective truth, right?
But
I
it
mean-
is. I just showed you an example.
I mean,
of
for
the gun
me
violence.
it's not. For me, it's clear that I don't want to believe.
Okay, so for you, everything is clear.
I mean, not everything, but what I'm trying to say is, do we have such complicated issues?
Okay, give me an example of objective truth which people agree with you. Give me one.
Hurting others is bad.
Okay. What
Killing
does that?
others is bad.
What does that mean? Hurting others. Let me give you an example about hurting and killing people. Do you agree that every war is wrong?
Yeah.
You believe every war is wrong?
Yeah.
So if somebody comes and attacks your country, would you fight back or would you just sit back?
I mean, soldiers would fight back. But
Okay.
what
While
I'm-
fighting back, would you hurt someone? Would you kill someone?
Yeah.
So there you go. So it's not wrong all the time. Am I right? There are wars which are justified. Yes. So there are just wars.
Justified, yeah, but
There are wars which are just.
Death is still bad.
No, but you can't call it bad. If somebody is coming to oppress you, oppress your people, and oppress your country, and abuse them, then you have every
You're
right to
fighting
defend.
back. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
you have every right to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't mean just in the context of war, even in the context of your daily life. If somebody comes to hurt you or your family, you would defend yourself and them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
So you cannot say every fight is wrong or every war is wrong. There is justification for that. Obviously, it has to be mostly in this case, I'm talking about self-defense. So again, once again, the question, give me some example of a justified, an objective moral.
Sorry, who was attacking who, if I may ask? I just got in.
Self-defense.
Rape?
Self-defense. Regardless, self-defense.
Rape?
What's that?
Rape?
Second? Rape.
Rape.
Rape, yeah, I agree. So rape is objectively wrong. And this is something that people out there agree upon. And that's why we have rules.
Yeah.
Okay? But what would be the consequence of that? So what would
There are some atheists, if I'm not mistaken, using their particular worldview in a moral compass, don't consider to be wrong. Because there is no such thing as right and wrong. It's what you make out of it. And they will not consider rape to be wrong. I think I've heard someone, very prominent people saying these things.
I mean, good thing about being atheist is you don't have to speak for everyone.
Yes.
Because it's
It's not a
community.
uniform
Yeah.
community. Everyone has their own ideas.
Yeah.
So
we'll always find exceptions.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there is essentially something within our own selves, a compass inherent. We say this is how we are born with, our natural disposition,
Instinct, yeah.
in which there are things that we know is not right, and we shouldn't be doing these things. So
Yeah.
the example you're giving this, but people will go against this instinct. Okay, there might be even laws preventing or even facilitating that, depending on what this particular thing is. So there is definitely a need for regulated affairs, how our affairs are regulated. If we either leave our affairs to be regulated by a state in which certain people within that state regulates on our behalf, making errors as they go along, learning, like in communism, what happened, how Stalin and all the other communist leaders in that process killed thousands of people by trying to implement a system which they thought was better for the society. But we now realize, looking at historical perspective, this is not the right way of doing things, because it really at high cost to human society. So the best way would be to get divine guidance. But this question then will be revolved differently. When we're talking about divine guidance to get absolute truth, absolute morality, how do we know there is a God? How are we convinced of it? And how can we be sure that what we are receiving from God, because God doesn't necessarily just give us the guidance now, He may have given it to certain prophets and messengers before, that what we are receiving from them is the entire truth. If, for example, the Quran is the divine guidance, is it exactly as it was given to the prophet and messenger? So that's how the discussion then revolves to a different tangent, in which we need to really go to those existential questions and relate that to our existence here and our possible existence of a creator or not. You are an atheist?
Yeah. And I think that would be my question to you, that how do you know it's different?
Yeah.
So when you say atheist, do you
Can
completely?
someone record
Yeah, sure.
in my phone as well?
Yeah, go ahead. Brother, do you mind recording that? Do you take that phone and record?
For like 2 minutes or
This is our channel where it's going to be uploaded.
Yeah, we can give you the clip.
Yeah, we can have that clip.
that would be
Yeah, that was.
So what's the name? Sorry,
Rutuja.
Rutuja.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's is it just you in your family who's an atheist
Yeah.
and the rest are still Hindu, or?
Yeah. They're Jain particularly.
Oh,
if
they're
you-
Jain.
Yeah.
Oh
Jain.
wow. they're
You know,
even
tell
more-
us about Jain, this religion. I think
Jainism, yeah.
Not many people may know about this, apart from what they have learned in school.
So what's the difference between Jainism and Hinduism, for example?
Different gods.
Different
and-
gods.
Yeah.
So who is the god in Jainism?
Many, but I mean, we don't believe in God in the form of a human, as in we don't believe that God.
You don't believe in a
exists like
form god who has a
yeah,
form, okay?
Yeah, formless or something like that. And
Does he
we
have a
don't
name?
believe many gods.
No,
There
in
are-
Jainism, does God have a name?
So there are 24 of them.
Oh, 24 gods.
Yeah, so they are born as humans. Then they teach us. They're basically teachers.
No audio. Oh, no
Yes.
audio speaking up. Are you happy
It's
with
okay. Hand it back.
Yeah.
She can take our clip later. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay, that's all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks anyway.
So,
Yes.
so it's
So it's
the gods
basically
become
they're-
avatars, and they become human. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sort of. They are human and then they become teachers, and then when they die, we call them God.
And in terms of,
So basic principle is non-violence
oh yeah,
and peace. So that's
yeah. And they're mostly vegan, are they?
yeah,
Jain. They don't.
yeah,
eat-
vegetarian. Yeah,
Not even vegetarian. I think they're vegan. That means they don't even eat eggs or milk.
yeah. Eggs no,
Or
but
dairy
milk.
products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Milk. Yeah, we do.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think some vegetarians might consider eating eggs. But anyway, the main thing is Jains. So it's
So that's Jainism in a nutshell. But the question, Rutuja
Yes. Rutu.
was asking is, to us, we are believers. We believe in a creator.
How do you?
How do we know the creator exists? So if I were to ask you to facilitate this discussion so we can better understand how this can be answered better, what are the sources of knowledge? How do you know things, anything in the first place? What are the sources in plural of knowledge?
Science,
Science, experimentation? Yep.
experimentation,
Yep.
hypothesis, and then maybe texts, ancient texts and stuff.
Ancient texts. Okay. So is there anything about instincts?
Yeah, instincts probably. Yeah.
Okay. So, I'm quite pleased that you didn't just
You guys come from
restrict
Islamic.
the avenue of knowledge only to science and experimentation.
Yeah.
Because at one point people used
if you want, we
the
can.
reason,
You got time.
their enlightenment through reason, in which reason and logic can also come to a conclusion about things, about reality, not necessarily doing experiments. Because what experiments can you do to learn about things which are not of a material nature of this world? Because this world is not necessarily materialistic. There are things yet we can feel and we can understand as well. There are more than materialism. So we say there are lots of avenues of knowledge, and the most foolproof areas of knowledge is divine guidance, divine revelation. So when the Creator reveals to us, communicates to us, that's when we can be sure that this is the foolproof, absolute, certain knowledge from God. So the question is, how do we know God exists? Okay, so we can approach this question in several ways. One is looking at the creation itself and try to understand whether the creation can point to the Creator. Like every painting that you see, when you look at a beautiful painting, you see the painter who has put the art within it, drawing these things, and you can see there's an ocean there, the birds, the trees, the flowers. You don't just think that this painting is necessarily a product of chance and wind and something that came together and made this.
But
Because of the artistry, the beauty, the precision, the element within that picture. Imagine this was a picture of a building with doors and windows, with chimneys, and inside you can see a human being, a lady with a hat, and you can see a television, with all of that within the picture. You would not put this as a product of accident and it just happened. You would attribute to this picture a design, and you will say there's a designer or an artist to this picture because of the elements that you see within this picture. If it was simply like some scribbles here and there, yeah, you would say it's possible, you just leave on a piece of paper and then something happens and by accident this can happen. But if it was of the nature of like a proper art, you would not say, I can conclude for certain that this is a product of nothingness, product of chance, and that's it, no one actually drew it or no one produced this art.
okay, so
And the reason why you'd make this conclusion is the amount of information within that piece of art, yeah, this particular piece. Look at the creation. Can we conclude by looking at this creation that this creation cannot be likewise a product of just happens, it's just there by chance, or without any design, without any engineer, without any artist, without any designer, without any creator for this creation that we see? Because what is the thing that we see within our creation that tells us to be certain that yes, there has to be a creator who created this creation in this way? Do you see anything?
no, so I would say 50-50. I will explain you why. I would like to explain it in two layers. First is how are you saying that this is not a random scribble? I mean, maybe it is a random scribble and it happened to be beautiful at a part. Just happened to be, right?
So all these precise universal constants that we see in our universe operating.
It could be scribble. Because it's just small earth, right? And there is
No.
huge-
We see this precision. In our DNA, for example, the amount of precision in the DNA, human body, which amounts to the way our phenotype is in terms of...
Maybe that's just a scribble too.
No, when you say
universe.
scribble, where is the scribble when we see this precision? There are this DNA that switches on and off certain genes, and these genes do this. The color of your eyes, of your hair, how tall you're going to be, and your skin, where these cells are going to go, what they're going to form, cells of the heart or of the lungs and so on. Precise instructions. So to say that this is just, imagine I give you this genetic code, and I say this is just scribbles. If you are a geneticist, you would not say, oh, this is just a scribble. You would say this is precision
For
codes.
us, because we are operating in a certain dimension, certain logic, right? I mean, few years ago, probably, we would have never believed something like theory of relativity, where or time travel, concept of time travel. But theoretically, it doesn't make sense to our brains. It's hard to imagine a world where light speed is different, or things like that. So for us, when we say logic, it's very limited logic, right? I mean, it's hard for us to imagine how there is a planet without gravity, how we would operate. So there are things beyond our imagination as well, right? So when we try to put it, that's what I'm saying about the religion, is that when you try to stick to religion, it's almost as if saying this is how things work. This is how
But
it is.
that's religion giving us instructions. But when it comes to this question about God's existence, as I said, there are various ways we can approach this. One, as I said, looking at the creation. Let me give you another example.
Okay.
If I give you a piece of paper
Yeah.
in which I say, dear, what's your name again? Ruth?
Rutuja.
Ruth. Dear Ruth, it was a pleasure meeting you on a Sunday in Speaker's Corner. And it was so cold, we wish we had more layers and clothes and so on and so forth. and we discussed many things about Jainism. We talked about the existence of creator, and we talked about the paint and the painter. We talked about the genetic code which determines our phenotype. Mention all of this, and we hope that we can meet again. And I just signed my name, Mansoor. What's the date today? 19th of December. Right. In that piece of paper, you received this through the post. Would you consider this is just scribbles by chance?
No.
What eliminates these being scribbles?
Details.
Details.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just A, B, C, D, F1, A,
Yeah,
B,
structure.
whatever.
Yeah.
They're not random letters
Yeah.
and numbers.
Yeah.
They are arranged in such a way, they demonstrate certain patterns, and within these patterns, they demonstrate meaning. So this is the highest level of complexity. Yeah.
some
So it's not.
intelligence
So this complexity, which gives us meaning, we say yes, intelligence behind it.
Yes.
The genetic code or the universe with its laws is like this. It's not scribbles, but these are precise, organized in a particular pattern, which gives us meanings, which gives instruction. The genetic code is a language itself, which gives instructions which are meaningful. More complex, more organized than my basic letter that I may have posted to you. So, but you said it's a scribble, and yet I would consider this to be one of the highest level of complexity, in which there is meaning. It's a code. It's a coding itself. Like in a coding language, in language of computers, for example, you have all these codes, which has a program.
Would you say it came by itself?
Would you say these are
If you
scribbles?
saw a computer code, say written in C language or C++ language,
Yeah.
the language
I would-
itself, it's there's some intelligence behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you wouldn't say it came by itself, would you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course not. Of course not.
Whereas
It
this
came out.
DNA is much more complex than any coding language out there, any code out there. Do you agree? So how can something more complex you say came by chance? I'm not saying you're saying that, but what would you say originated that?
I mean, it was years and years of.
Yeah, even years and
Evolution.
years, you see, ultimately you'll have to end up somewhere, right? It must have an origin, unless you're saying it's eternal, which can't be really.
I mean, even if it is origin, what is your concept of God? I mean,
Say again?
even if it has an origin,
Yeah.
let's say it has an origin.
Origin means, look, there are two types of origin. One is it has been caused or uncaused. Now, as believers, we believe that God is uncaused. No one caused him to come into existence. Yes? Whereas he causes everyone to come into existence. So he's the one who causes or creates the creation or brings them into existence, whereas he himself is not caused. So if I were to ask you, okay, not only the DNA, not only you and me, not only this park here, not only the earth here and I would say the entire universe, do you think it came by itself? Do you think someone created it? Or do you think it was always there?
I would say I don't know. I mean, I don't know who created it or what.
Okay,
That's
so
what
let's-
I'm saying.
yeah, let's
How
try
are you
to-
saying for sure that's someone
Yeah,
created?
fair enough. Let's try to eliminate the impossibilities. So if I were to ask you,
I mean,
second,
how we are trying to contain this knowledge of universe with our logic and with our philosophy and
we have
stuff.
to. That's all we got.
Why? I mean,
Because
why
our
can't
logic,
we leave the chance that maybe not.
no, our logic and our rationality is all we got. For you and me to ask these critical questions, we rely on our logic.
But we can leave that space, right? Maybe not.
No, it's not. Look, if I were to tell you that did nothing cause this universe?
Maybe.
Does nothing exist?
Nothingness.
Maybe.
Nothingness. Does it exist?
There is dark matter, right? Almost nothingness.
That's not nothing though.
So
It's
let's
something.
define the terms first. What is nothingness?
Nothing. Absolutely.
Say again?
Nothing. I mean,
Nothing is
absence.
nothing.
Absence.
Absence of everything.
Everything. Yeah.
So let's say, yeah, that's a good definition. So nothingness is the absence of everything. So anything you can imagine, anything that you can see, observe, measure, whatever, is the absence of all of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the something is the opposite of nothing.
Yeah.
You see? Do you agree?
Yeah.
Now, I believe the universe is something
Yeah.
because we know it, we can experience this. Yeah, we know it exists. But would you say nothingness exists?